Okay, so if you missed it, I just was responding to the Enby Booktube tag, and now I'm going to be creating an Enby Authortube tag. So it seems like the Enby Booktube tag was really useful for non-binary booktubers to find each other on YouTube. And I think it'd be great to know and connect with more Enbys who are authortubers. I'm creating this tag. I don't know if anyone else will do it, but I would love it if you did. And I'm tagging everyone who is non-binary and an author to participate. The questions are going to be in the description, and I'll answer them for myself one by one. The first question is, how has being non-binary influenced your writing journey? So I have a few stories for this, and I thought maybe other non-binary authors will too. I came out as non-binary right around the same time that I started seriously pursuing writing, because both events were made possible by something that happened in my life. So I had been a teacher for 10 years, and basically I was forced out of that job after I became temporarily disabled. I spill all the tea on that story in my How the Renfest Made Me Trans video. So if you want to know the whole deal, you can watch that there. But basically this job that had forced me to perform femininity for 10 years, this job that had been my life, like they just kind of kicked me to the curb. And so I just like had to reinvent myself sort of and figure out who I was without that job as an identity. And I realized I wanted to be a writer and that I was trans, all in the same sort of 2-year period that I was also figuring out how to be a parent. I started writing a book, I was querying it, and then I was starting to write short stories and get those, trying to get those published. And I had just gotten my first story accepted for publication right around the same time I finally came out as trans on Twitter. And so I wrote to the editor who had accepted my story for publication and said, hey, I'd actually like to change the pronouns in my bio to they, them. And the editor wrote back and flat out refused to print my pronouns. I was very patient with her. We exchanged a couple emails back and forth. I tried to educate her. I sent her links to resources and just figured maybe this is the first time she's ever encountering a non-binary person. But she really dug her heels in and said she would not under any circumstances print my pronouns as requested. So I decided to withdraw the story. I vented about this experience on Twitter. I posted some screenshots of our interaction. Tweet thread then like blew up. It was like the hot drama of the day in the writing world on Twitter. Because of that, a bunch of magazines reached out and offered that I could submit the story to them and they would be, trans inclusive and print my pronouns. And I was also asked by Out magazine to write up the story and talk about my experiences for Out. So I did that. The story was finally accepted by Wizards in Space magazine, which became the first time I was ever paid for my fiction. And then Out magazine paid me for the nonfiction article. So 2 really great experiences came out of this like very low moment in my life. When that editor wrote back and said like she absolutely wouldn't print my pronouns, like again, I had recently been like forced out of a job that I had given my life to. I was a brand new baby trans and like so insecure about it, had just experienced my first taste of success as a writer, and it seemed that like being non-binary and getting published were all of a sudden incompatible. I felt very low. I felt like a clown. I was ready to like give up on writing and living my truth and everything. But then in that moment, there was this incredible like response of love and support on Twitter. And I realized like that editor, that woman, like her kind is on the way out and queer publishing is what is up. And we are like a force of nature that cannot be stopped. Getting that first story published was really like a jumping off point for everything that has happened to me, including having my own book coming out this September. So the second question on this tag is, what matters to you in writing non-binary characters? For me, it's important to show that there is a broad range of non-binary characters. Non-binary does not just equal androgynous. So I've written femme and masc non-binary people. Sometimes the reader can tell the character was AFAB or AMAB, assigned female at birth or assigned male at birth. Sometimes I don't want to disclose that. That can be very discomforting for cis readers. Sometimes I have a hard time like having to sit with that. but I think it's good for them. So I do that a lot as well. And then sometimes knowing the character is AFAB or AMAB is important to their story, and then it's included. I've written a lot of dystopia set in the near future because I write a lot about climate change. Anytime I have a story set in the future, whether it's near future or far future, I always include non-binary characters because we're not going anywhere. And I've never written a historical story, but I'm researching one right now, and it's gonna be a multiple timelines type story, multi-generational. And you know I'm putting queer trans characters in the past because we have always been here. And you know, we might not have had the word non-binary to define ourselves, but I guarantee you there have always been these people who felt like that neither the male or female genders like fit them. So those are some of the things that are important to me in writing non-binary characters. Number 3, tell us about your work in progress, short stories, or books with non-binary representation. First, I'll tell you about my short stories. I have one that's available to read for free on the web called The Propagator, which was in Metaphorosis. It's a short story that talks a lot about reproductive justice and the intersection of reproductive justice and climate change, set in a near future dystopian Texas. There's a character who's not a main character, just kind of comes and goes, and they are non-binary. And again, that was just me, like non-binary people are always going to be there in my stories. And so you'll spot that character if you read The Propagator. The second story, you have to buy it. It's going to be available online for free soon. Like they release it a year after the anthology comes out, I think. But you can purchase it in a back issue of The Colored Lens. And that was a short story set in a far future setting. Everyone on that planet goes by Zer neopronoun. So you don't know anybody's gender. Gender is like defunct in this far future world. Choron has been wrenched from its orbit by a nearby collapsing star. And so the planet is like spiraling away from its sun. And the people on that planet are looking at having to go underground and live off of the geothermal energy of the planet. With all that like big world plot going on, the main character experiences a miscarriage, and so is having this like very personal trauma against this backdrop of like planetary collapse. And I wrote that story immediately after I had just had a miscarriage. I was really interested in telling the story of a miscarriage, which is a reproductive trauma, in a story that was completely divorced from gender. So no one has a gender in that story. I mean, no one has like a binary gender in that story. Everyone's Zer. I was able to like tell about my own reproductive trauma in this way that felt safe because I was able to like divorce it from gender in that way. The story is called The New Nomad. My dad, who's a baby boomer, pronounced it unreadable because of all the neopronouns. So if you think you can handle that, I welcome you to check out The New Nomad. My YA book, Sand and Swarm, which I have signed an agent, Kirsten Wolf, with. We're going to be going on sub with that this year. It has 2 non-binary characters who are kind of foils for each other because, again, it was important to me to show like the range. So Magenta is a tough femme non-binary character, very kick-ass, everyone's favorite. Magenta like steals the show. And then there's Joe, who's a very soft mask main character. Joe lives in a climate change caused desert area. They share their water rations with like hundreds of houseplants that they have collected and propagated to fill their apartment. Joe is everybody's darling. The 2 non-binary characters in the book are pretty much everyone's favorites, and they're very different from each other. And finally, there's my book, which is coming out in September, my novella, Depart Depart. The main character is a trans-binary man, Noah Mishner, but Noah, in the wake of a hurricane that has destroyed the city of Houston, Noah finds himself in a shelter and finds a community of other trans climate refugees, and one of them is Malone, who's non-binary. And Malone, like kind of like Magenta in Sand and Swarm, Malone kind of steals the book. Everybody loves Malone. Malone's like a college student. They're half white, half Vietnamese. They are in school to become an abortion provider someday. Also the funniest character. It's a pretty dark book, and Malone provides some much needed laughs. If that sounds interesting to you, please pre-order Depart to Part. And I'll also happily provide a digital advanced reader's copy of Depart to Part to any booktuber or authortuber who wants to review it. The fourth question in the AuthorTube Enby tag will be to shout out or tag other Enby Authortubers. So I've only found one so far, which is Ray Stovey. And Ray seems really awesome. I'm really excited about their book, Between Perfect and Real, which is coming out in 2021. Go follow Ray Stovey, and I am tagging any other Enby Authortubers out there who want to participate in this tag. Say hi, let me know when your video's up. I would love to follow you and build some community of non-binary Authortubers. That's the video, that's the tag. I hope you participate. Please like and comment if you enjoyed this video. Buy my book, subscribe, please subscribe. That helps me grow my channel, and I will see you next time. Bye.